everybody, and I hope you all are excited because it is another exciting episode of Radiorama, where, as the name implies, I show you how to work on radios. And today we have a Zenith, and I've already forgotten the model name, even though I was like, I need to make sure and flip it over so I can tell people what model it is, and I forgot it. It is a model Y723 in a bakelite cabinet with white plastic accentuating trim. I haven't tested it out. I don't know if it works. It is in unusually nice cosmetic condition. The back looks clean and fresh. We're missing one of the T's down here. I've got some of those. Let's go ahead and try it out. And, you're not going to hear anything, as these guys need to warm up, as you radio guys know. It looks like it's not the model that has the tone control on the side. There were a few other variations of this.
Go to NFE.
Of course, it works perfectly. Now, whether or not it's been restored or not is anyone's guess. Most of the time, not. By the time you start getting into the 50s, electronics, especially when it comes to things that are more soft, like capacitors, had gotten a lot better. But on top of that, Zenith was just kind of a special company back in the day. It's back when you'd have a company like Zenith where the management actually cared about the long-term reliability and the quality of the product. So even their slogan was, as you know, you Americans, the quality goes in before the name goes on. And that's primarily, in my opinion, probably one of the reasons that they lasted as long as they did. They were active way up until 2000 before they were bought by LG. And LG bought them because of all their patents, because they were a patent powerhouse, and were, believe it or not, instrumental with some of the earliest developments of high-definition television. That's probably why LG bought them, because they wanted that technology. So I'm going to remove the back and subsequently the chassis, and we'll see what the electronic situation is with it. I peeled the back off and took a look inside. First of all, it seems weird that they've kind of put this speaker on there like that. But that's the attachments to it. I'm not sure if maybe they had a different model run or what. Maybe that's original. It's awfully clean in here. And when I see cleanliness like that, it makes me think it's been worked on. But then again, it was pretty sealed up. Not a lot of opportunity for dust to get in there. But this thing is almost like a time capsule. It's very clean. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, because this is very important, is that the label came right off. So I'm just going to put a little glue down, and I'm just going to stick that back on there. All right. So now I can take the screws out that hold the chassis in, and we'll take it out and see what's going on underneath and see what the truth is with this thing. Well, it ain't virgin, but it's pretty close to being virgin. It looks like that someone has gone on to replace the selenium rectifier that would have probably been here at some point. And where would it have been? Usually it's up either in the top or in the front here. And that is definitely a way newer. That's a silicone diode. As are the sleeves on these two components. So these two resistors probably were replaced. Again, we got the original electrolytic capacitor in there, and you've got a little bit of goo coming out the bottom like that. That's never a good sign. That means there's been some swelling and maybe it's vented a little bit. I wouldn't trust that. But there's like nothing else in here hardly. There's a whole bunch of ceramic capacitors, and then 1, 2, possibly 3 paper capacitors. That's the across the line capacitor, because one end of the line on this set is most definitely metal chassis. And a lot of you folks are like, well, why would Zenith do that? If they're so interested in making high quality things, why would you make a shitty hot chassis like that? Well, you can do that as long as you're smart about it. And what they've done here is they've made it to where it's physically difficult to get to anything metal. First of all, the screws that hold the chassis in are nylon, so the screws won't be touching any of this. Secondly, all the controls are mounted on insulating material. And they've even gone so far as if you took the knobs off and tried to stick your fingers past the shaft, you can't even get to that because there's a piece of cardboard here. And then they've got a back, and when you take the back off, it disconnects the power. So they did their homework, and I think this is a testament to their quality, because other manufacturers, even from the same time period, I've seen hot chassis sets that were just death traps. Like the entire back is exposed. You know, it's just like it's just begging for someone to shock themselves. Now, granted, it wasn't like the stories were filled with people electrocuting themselves with radios, but it's just a bad principle to design anything and then make it to where someone could possibly electrocute themselves on it. If you just make a few extra safety precautions, and granted, we're talking just a little bit of plastic here, makes all the difference in the world. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And what I'm looking at right now is, again, the underside of the electrolytic that we just shown has vented and should not be trusted. So, first of all, I'm going to pull the skinny rectifier, output tube out so it doesn't get wiggled around and get broken off of there. The values of your electrolytics will be stamped on the outside of the can. And this is metal on metal, and it's difficult to film, but what that says... Okay, you just have to believe what I have to say. It says 80 and 40 microfarads. If you see MFD or UF or whatever that symbol is, that indicates microfarads. And they'll have a voltage rating and a microfarad rating. And on these, there'll also be little shapes that will be embossed on the side of the can. Again, I have a hard time filming that because it's just metal on metal. But in this case, the 80 microfarads would be the square shape. And if you just bend these back a little bit, sometimes you can... Let's see if I can zoom in and get this. All right, you see that one that says has got a triangle? And that one's a square. So our 80 microfarad one goes here. The positives of the 40 go here. And your chassis ground is the negative, so you can put their negatives anywhere you want. But since everything's pretty closely tied together, and I have these lugs that mounted the electrolytic, I can just use those instead. That didn't take very long. It took about 15 minutes. It's all recapped now. Didn't miss anything here. And you can see what I did here. You can get the negatives of your electrolytics really close to the ground. It's the same thing as using a terminal strip, because a lot of people they freak out about, oh, like you just can't have stuff dangling like that. And it's like, what do you think is going to happen when it's hanging off of one of these terminal strips? We'd be doing the same thing. This is the chassis ground. I can get it real close, and so everything is attached and real tight. And I think I'm going to test it just to make sure the thing still works, even though I can't help but think like it surely must. But then again, I have been way too confident in myself, then wound up having that bite me in the ass, and that could happen. Didn't get much done yesterday. I had an exciting radio come in that I bought for myself, and I got distracted. But I'm back, and hopefully ready to finish this up, even though it's a weirdly cold day today. Doesn't get cold here in California very often, well, at least where I do, but it's a little chilly for me. Anyway, what I'm going to do is run this, which is a Bluetooth transmitter, a receiver, from my phone through this cable and into the radio. How do you do that, you ask? Well, you run it through the volume control, which is this thing. And you'll see it has several leads that come out of the top of it here. 3. There's center, and then there's one on one side and one on the other. And what this is it's essentially just a mechanical resistor, and it'll either decrease or increase the signal that's getting to it. So I need to do the same thing with some incoming audio. But hold your horses. The problem is that this is a hot chassis set, and even though this is probably floating, it still is getting directly to a chassis ground through this resistor here, even though it's probably diminished greatly by the time it gets there. But just to make sure that we're safe, I'm going to run that audio instead through this isolation transformer. There's nothing exotic about it. I was ordering these. In fact, I just ordered a ton of them. Well, our museum just ordered a ton of them because of crap. I can't get my camera to focus because of all the trade crap, tariff crap. But what it is electrically speaking, there's 110 volts for the primary side and between 6 and 12 volts for the secondary, which is these two pins that are closer together. And when you run your audio through the secondary and the primary goes to the volume control, then this is going to block any potential electrocution / current hazard that could get through to the user through that cable. But there's a added step that I'll need to take care of here, which is, now, to be clear, on some sets you don't need to do this. Some sets have a phono function where you just turn the switch in the front for phono. But most of these little 5, 6, 7, whatever hot chassis tube sets, they don't have that feature. And so that means that if I were to run audio through, then the radio would interrupt it. Or you'd have to tune to a quiet station, which isn't, on this radio, is just as sensitive as it is, it's not easy. So I'll need to make sure and temporarily disconnect the radio signal getting to it, which I think is this wire, because I know this is a negative side of the pot, and there's only one thing going to the other side, which is this wire. So I'm going to clip that, and just to make sure, I'll fire it up and make sure that the radio signal's dead. Later on, I'll add a little switch so that you can turn that back on, and it should be just as clean as it would be coming out directly. But we'll need to do something to the, where'd it go? The isolation transformer before we do that. Well, that apparently was the right thing to disconnect. Don't do what I'm doing, by the way. Anyway, you can tell it's I mean, that's cranked all the way, and there's like a teeny little bit probably leaking through. I think what I'll do, just to make sure this is going to work, I'll run the switch wire out next. So sometimes the switch wire will act like an antenna. That said, it doesn't seem to be reacting that much, so maybe it's okay. Well, here's what you need to do to the isolation transformer. So the primary side, which is the side I'm pointing at that has this big orange drop capacitor in it, that's the primary side, meaning it goes to the volume control. And I have the leads that will go to the volume control attached. I'll make it a little long in case I need to move stuff around. And then the secondary side is where the audio cable's coming in. And the right and left channel, which is the red and white wires, they go through the end of two resistors. Then your negative, which is gold, or yellow in this case, goes to the other side of the secondary input. And then those two resistors are soldered together. And that terminates, so you get your right and left channels mixed together for mono, because you ain't getting stereo out of this thing. Then on the other side, this if you're wondering what that resistor and that capacitor is, that's kind of like acting like a shunt, so that the transformer itself won't interfere with the radio's performance and fidelity. Kind of learned that the hard way. It's a cheap fix, but it works. But before I install it, what I'm going to do is glue it up. I don't like these things sitting in there with these exposed electronics when it could possibly work itself free inside of a hot chassis. It's not a great idea, so all of that needs to be insulated. Alright, here's what that looks like, and everything is covered in hot glue and solidified, so Now it's like a solid brick. And what I do is I'm going to glue that right here and then run the connecting cable over to the volume control. Then I've already run the cable out for the switch, that little skinny guy. And whoops, then we can see if that works with the Bluetooth. I've been trying to do neater jobs of installing these because it's hard for me to show these in these videos and people like go not like, huh? But here we go. It's as straightforward as I can possibly install it, which is I've drilled a little hole through the chassis and put a rubber grommet in it. And then our incoming audio from the Bluetooth comes in through that hole. There's a little knot on the other end, and then I dab a little glue to secure the knot so you can't yank it out of there. And then that goes into the isolation transformer. And then we have the leads going to either end of the volume control. So now we can run the audio through. And then a little switch wire in the back will be wired into this little switch, and that will return the radio signal on both AM and FM. So let me make sure that works, and then happy days will be ahead because it'll be time to clean the top of the chassis, then clean the cabinet and put her back together again. Well, I moved this over here before I filmed it, but anyway, I cleaned up the top of the chassis. What I also did is I lubricated all the bearings for the tuning condenser and everything, so now everything just runs smooth as butter. You want to make sure that the tuning condenser is all free, there's no crap on the fins. Sometimes you can just blow it out with compressed air. So now that that's all nice and done, I'm going to work on the cabinet. And at first I thought this surely can't be Bakelite, it's too shiny. But I looked on the edge and like, it absolutely is Bakelite. At least I think it is. I mean, it's just unusually shiny. Usually Bakelite doesn't look this nice, so I'm just wondering if it got treated really nicely. I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to instead go over it with Carnauba car wax. That does a great job on your weird hybrid plastics. Hybrid meaning there's fibrous material in there. And if you scratch it or you scratch it up or use something abrasive on it, you're never going to get that shine back. It's not like other plastics where it goes all the way through. There's a casting that gives it this shine when it came out of the mold. And it's pretty thin, and if you mess it up, it's gone. I don't know why I like that song so much. It's a stupid song. It's like, I don't even know the name of it. It's something like Big Baby's Birthday Party or something like that. So I have no idea what that's about. But anyway, I like the beat because it has a lot of bass in it. No, that's not over the radio. That's over the Bluetooth mechanism. It's kind of just comes to show like the cabinet can make a big difference as far as how a radio can sound, because that's not an exciting speaker. It's like that big, but it's in this giant cavity, so it kind of resonates. You know, I like Zenith a lot, but I wish they hadn't cheaped it out on the pilot light. Like, if this had been a design that I'd worked on, I would have had some sort of slit in here or something like that, so these numbers could be, I don't know, illuminated or something like that. But, you know, this was probably the trail end of this particular model or chassis run, because I know that they made a similar type of radio like this from the late 40s. And I'm guessing this is probably it has to be at least mid-50s because we have the civil defense markings on it. So let me disconnect this and turn this down, and there's a little switch in the back. And that turns the radio back on. Oops, I'm better at tuning with my right hand for some reason. Don't ask me what.
Whoever was pressuring that woman to get it.
If, in fact...
Leave us to all those who have survived and now need...
That was AM, I'm sorry.
I hope so.
Como 2 horas caminando,
Sí.
y entonces lo que hacía era...
Let's go. Critics are calling The Accountant 2 undeniably awesome.
Is your brother up to speed on the case?
Baxton, thank you for coming.
As a trusted family jeweler since 1929.
Text HAIR to 323232. Don't wait. Time is limited to file a claim. Text the word HAIR to
countries. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri announced the diplomatic moves against Pakistan at a...
Yeah.
You're listening to Your Legal Right on KALW 91.7 FM. I'm Jeff Hayden, joined by David Bigeleisen. Tonight, we're looking at...
Elkhorn Slough. Learn more at elkhornslough.org/forever. And my outdesk, help
Between your team,
Union. Everything we do is in your best interest.
Brothers Home Improvement.
Rest in power, James Earl Jones.
All right, you don't need to hear every single station, but you know, like I'm just mesmerized. This is so freaking sensitive. Like it's way more sensitive than some of the freaking modern radios I work on, or more modern. I think it just comes to show like how good Zenith was at designing circuits and why some of their models were so reliable and so robust, and why there's so many of them around. But then again, I've worked on 10,000 million billion of these, and so that's just me. I'm biased. But anyhow, thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned a thing or two. And until the next time something comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.